Welcome. My name is Naomi Krogman, and I want to welcome you tonight to the Peter Lougheed Lecture with Laurie Eisler, who is arguably the most dominant women's head coach in Canadian university sports history. I'm a professor in the Department of Resource Economics and Environmental Sociology, also an Associate Dean at the Faculty of Graduate Studies and Research. I am pleased to welcome you to the second lecture in our series in the Lougheed College Lecture series. I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory and in a very hopeful phase at the University of Alberta, where we are responding to the calls to action in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Just a bit of background on the Peter Lougheed College. In the spring of 2014, the Right Honorable Kim Campbell was appointed the founding principal of the Peter Lougheed Leadership College. The vice principal of the Peter Lougheed Leadership College is Dr. Martin Ferguson Pell, who is also a professor in the Faculty of Rehabilitative Medicine. The Peter Lougheed Leadership College is for third and fourth year students from across the disciplines who go through a creative, demanding, and immersive set of experiences to hone their leadership skills and to allow them to really think about what is it that leaders need to know. Attending these lectures is part of the students' interdisciplinary training. The purpose of this lecture series is to expose students to cross-cutting approaches and topics relevant to leadership in today's ever-changing society. These lectures provide a wonderful opportunity for all of us at the U of A and in the broader community to learn from outstanding leaders in our society. Tonight's event will run until 7:15. It will start with a lecture by Coach Eisler, followed by a conversation between the speaker and the Right Honorable Kim Campbell. During this address tonight, we do ask that you don't take any audio or video recordings. Now I would like to introduce to you tonight's speaker, Laurie Eisler. 2017 has been a remarkable year for Eisler, who set numerous University of Alberta coaching records and was inducted by the City of Edmonton's Hall of Fame this year. Eisler became the first female coach to ever record 700 overall wins. She then followed that up by becoming the University of Alberta's all-time winningest coach, as her career wins surpassed U of A's legendary Claire Drake, who was coach of the Golden Bears hockey and football teams. The Pandas have earned an impressive 14 national medals since 1991, all but one of which came with Eisler at the helm. Eisler has been named the Canada West Coach of the Year 6 times. In 2003, Eisler was inducted into the Alberta Sports Wall of Fame and into the Alberta Volleyball Hall of Fame in 2004. Currently, the Pandas are #1 ranked in the country as a university volleyball team. Way to go, Laurie. The long list of players that have gone through the program under Laurie over the last 25 years have gone on to play for the national program or the professional ranks. It's truly outstanding, the number of people that have strived even further after being coached under Laurie. In my meeting with Laurie, I was struck by her humility and her earnest assertion that being a coach for her is really bringing out the best in others and nurturing confidence and determination that her volleyball players carry far into their future lives. Please join me in welcoming Panda volleyball coach Laurie Eisler.
I was promised I could roam around a little bit. I'm not very good behind a podium. Thank you for that really kind introduction, and thank you, Right Honorable Kim Campbell, for allowing me to be here in your presence, and it's really an honor. To be a part of this lecture series, it was a little bit shocking for me when I got the email and was asked to share some of my thoughts and experiences at the University of Alberta as a volleyball coach. It's one of those emails that has mixed feelings because certainly it's not something I'm terribly comfortable with. I'm much more comfortable in my sweatpants. I'm missing practice right now, and that's where I'm much more comfortable with my athletes over at the Salvo Center. But it's really an honor to be here, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you tonight and to share a little bit of the things that I've learned along this journey. I think the topic is supposed to be something about the mindset required for leadership in competitive, stressful situations. I've been in a few of them, so I wanted to share my journey on what I've learned along the way, both from success and from failure. I want to start by, I think I do a job that is a little bit different. The profession of coaching isn't like a lot of things, but it may be similar to a lot of things as well. So I found this, it's adapted from Tom Peters' book on leadership. So where it says coaching, is actually supposed to say leadership. But I'm just going to take you through this because I really think it captures the essence of what coaching is to me, the paradox of coaching. Coaching is joyous. It's a matchless opportunity to make a difference by marshaling the talents of others to a seriously cool cause. And just so you know, I know all the people and all the photos in my slides, except for Will Ferrell, but I kind of feel I know him. I can relate to him in that little suit he's got on there. Coaching's horrible. It's an exercise in sorting through the mess of human relations in all their gory detail day after day. It's cool. It's a glorious adventure that enables us to magnify our impact on the world. Those two people, Glenn Hoag on the left and Lang Ping on the right, have changed the world of volleyball and are truly a couple of the real heroes in our coaching world. Coaching's lonely. It's a battle against doubt and dread in which you have only your own judgment about human nature to fall back on. It's different. It's a matter not of doing excellence, but of inspiring excellence in others. And that woman on the right is another one of my personal heroes. Lisa Tomaitis is the basketball coach at the University of Saskatchewan and also happens to be our national women's team coach that had a very impressive qualification and performance at the Rio Olympics. And this guy I know you all know. Coaching is the ultimate responsibility. It's an assumption of accountability for people you cannot control, for actions that you do not perform, for institutions that may or may not share your deep and abiding sense of accountability. So that's Claire Drake. Claire Drake set the bar for all of us at the University of Alberta, especially in athletics, in the Faculty of Kinesiology, Sport and Recreation, our new name. It was pretty humbling to be hired. I was hired at the age of 12. I was hired pretty fresh out of my playing days at the University of Saskatchewan. I don't know that I was ready for the opportunity that I was given here. And then that was the standard. Claire was no longer coaching at U of A, but he had really left his legacy. Billy Moores was the coach at the time, and Billy had carried on all of the traditions of Claire Drake and the amazing program that they had developed with the Golden Bears hockey team. So at least it gave me something to shoot for. And I thank Claire, and I congratulate Claire for his very late induction into the Hockey Hall of Fame, which will be coming up. So I want to talk a little bit about how I learned to be a coach. It started with a formal education. I did a Bachelor's of Education at the University of Saskatchewan as I was an athletic student. I then went on, I realized I didn't want to be a teacher. I don't know why I went into education, to be honest. I didn't even like school when I was in it. Why I would want to go back to it, it was kind of puzzling. I was a good student, don't get me wrong, but I just didn't like the high school environment. So I was encouraged to stick around the volleyball team and to become a volleyball assistant coach with my mentor coach. that I had played for, a real master coach, very wise person. And I stayed. I was basically slave labor for 4 years at the University of Saskatchewan as an assistant coach. I got to head coach for 1 year, which was really cool. My head coach went on a sabbatical, and he just said, "Here you go, Laurie, coach the team." That was overwhelming. And then I decided to start my master's program I did an MSc in phys ed in the area of sports psychology, and I found another great mentor in my academic supervisor, who is a very accomplished sport psychologist, Dr. Kevin Spink at the University of Saskatchewan. And so the formal education helped. I found actually a lot of the things that are now just becoming kind of buzzwords in coaching, that stuff was around already way back then. We just hadn't really applied it, I think, to coaching. And so I think it was a really good foundation for me academically. The mentorship, and I want to speak a little bit about this. I've had a lot of not a lot, I have some very, very good mentors that I've had the opportunity to learn from. I learned that I needed to learn from them but not copy them. A mentor, in coaching and leadership, you have your way. You are your own person. And you can't just go and try to be someone else. So I learned that I needed to critically evaluate and pull out what I could from each of my mentors. And sometimes I had to throw out the advice that I was given because it was wrong for me. So I'll give you an example. In 1996-ish, I guess it was, I realized that I was expecting our first child. And so I was pretty excited to tell one of my mentors about it, very important person in my life. I'm like, guess what? We're expecting. And he says, that's awesome. I'm so happy for you. And then he stopped and he looked at me. He goes, well, you can't do that. Like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you can't coach and be a mom. Like, how are you going to do that? I'm like, oh, I didn't really think of that. Because I just assumed that you could do anything. You know, and then I started thinking about, well, there's got to be other people doing it. Looking around, what other women are, I could see some men that were fathers and coaches, but I didn't really see many women. And so it was a little bit daunting. I chose to disregard that advice and to continue and just try. And I was very, very fortunate to have had my immediate boss, Ian Reed, at the time, and he just made everything possible for me. And so it was a little shocking, though. I think it was the first time that I didn't take the advice of a mentor, but it helped me to realize that sometimes you are alone and you have to assess what is right and what is wrong for you. I've got way too much. So something you need to know about me, I over-prepare. I will not leave any stone unturned. And so I've got way too much on my slides. I'm not going to apologize for it. If I get through it and it's like lots of time left, I'll come back. But I want to make sure I get to some of the stuff that I think later might be important to get to. So what is coaching? What is coaching? What is the coaching profession? I don't know how many of you know who that guy is on the slide. That's Don Horwood. He was our longtime basketball coach. He was the seasoned veteran coach on our staff when I was hired as well, and really a legend in his own mind. Actually, Don is a legend. I mean, truly, I came to really, we're very different people. Don is extremely extroverted, has a magnetic, charismatic personality, just loves being out there. He's the only person I've ever seen sing in faculty council. Not well, and a terrible dancer, but it never stopped him from performing. He loved the performance. I'm the opposite. I mean, I just want to be in my office with my video and analyzing stuff. So I learned that we were very different people, but we could both be pretty good at what we were doing. But we're a bit crazy. Coaches tend to be a little bit obsessive about what we do. For Don, it was basketball. And for all of us, we see our thing, we see our team, our sport, and that very rarely do we look outside of that, especially in season. We're a little bit paranoid. We always think there's something that's, going to get us, or someone that's after us, and worried about what's out there. And we're wired to coach. Coaches coach. You see people, like I'm blown away by the age of some of the coaches, especially south of the border. It's so inspiring. I feel young. I mean, you look at some of the CFL coaches, old Wally in Vancouver. He's got to be way older than me. And he's still doing it at a really high level. So, and I think I see the passion and the energy. It takes a ton of energy to be a coach, and it just shows that if you're really doing what you're meant to do, that you can do it for a very long time. It's an open-ended job. Our days don't really end. A lot of what we do is in our head, and a lot of the workload, it can be extremely high workload, especially I think in Canada, where we're a little bit under-resourced in sport. And so we have high expectations around our workload. The stress and pressure can be oppressive, but you know what? The highs are so high, but the lows are really low, which is another thing that makes it an amazing profession, because where in life do you get to experience those kind of highs? But you got to reconcile the fact that you're going to sink low as well. So it's a little bit of a unique position. I found a number of personal and emotional challenges that have come along with the job. One is the fact that I mentioned that we have very little control over some of the really critical components of our job that are going to determine whether we're successful or not. Okay, so I don't control whether my students are successful academically. I can't control a 17-year-old and convince them that they need to come to U of A. I mean, our program is only as good as the athletes. But really, when they're picking, sometimes they're picking based on the weather. They're picking based on where their boyfriend's going. Like, it's some pretty interesting. I had one athlete said they liked the weight room at a university. I'm like, are you kidding me? Anyway, it's challenging. We have little control over the outcome of the competition. 18 to 22-year-olds, for the most part, are controlling the success of the win and loss. And does it matter? Yeah, I've had colleagues fired because of their win-loss record, right? So we have to accept the fact that we don't have a lot of control. We're public figures. When I signed up for this job, the only match of the year that you could see outside of the gym was the national final. It was live on TSN. That was incredible. But now every match is webcast across the world. Anyone can watch what we do. And so especially I think in particular for an introvert like myself, this has made the job a little bit different. The internet, social media, people can get to us in ways that we never could be before. Professional relationships can be a bit strained. The people that are most like me on the planet are the people that do the job that I do at other institutions, that I work all week to try to beat the crap out of on the weekend. So the challenge to be a friend with someone that you want to crush, it's not easy. But some of my dearest friends are my colleagues that we compete with, that I have to compete against, and those are some of the tougher weekends. In fact, having said that, one of my closest friends in coaching, most people think is my biggest enemy, because when we compete against each other, we literally yell at each other. Like it's weird, I'm such a nice person, but I don't know why he's always yelling at me. But I know when he starts yelling at me that he's really actually mad at his team, so I enjoy that. The personal relationships, so then, well, that's okay because you must have great personal relationships. Well, I mean, the athletes are not my friends. I want to be a friend to them, but they can't be my friends. I made that mistake once with an athlete very early in my career, and I couldn't coach her after that. I couldn't really truly be a coach to her once she became a friend. And so that was about 100 years ago. So they're not an option. The friends in your life, some people don't really like to say goodbye in September and, hey, I'm available again in April. It's very difficult during our season to find the time really to have a kind of a social life. And so there's a lot of personal sacrifices that way. We're just absent. We're gone a lot. I work evenings all week, and weekends I'm either home or away, and I work all weekend. So the sacrifices you make not only in the friendship domain, you can imagine in the family domain. There's a lot of hockey games I missed that my kids played in. I didn't put the kids in arts, so there were no recitals. I can't mention recitals, but yeah, there was a lot of things that I've missed along the way. So managing this personal emotional toll, if you want to stay in the gig for an extended period of time, and I would suggest that you only really get good at it by doing it for an extended period of time, I needed to do a number of things. So develop self-awareness. I'm really committed to continually evolving. I want to grow, I want to learn, and a lot of the things that I've learned really pertain to me, of being a better version of me. I needed to accept and understand that it's not about me, that it's about the athletes, and to always put them in the forefront of my mind. Something might make me feel better, but if it's not helping them, then it's not helping. And I think the only other one I'll mention on this is feeling the passion. And so sometimes the job can become repetitive. It can become, I won't say mundane, because it's far from that. But we do the same things over and over again. What I've found that's really helped to fuel my passion of coaching is to extend myself into the international domain and go with the national team to an event or be part of the World University Games and to experience take my team to Japan, where it's like volleyball heaven, and to really be immersed in something that's really special in my sport. And then I can come back and bring all these things that I learned, and I just feel really energized by it. So I think everyone needs to be really aware of what fuels their passion. Sleep's overrated. That whole, it's nice, 7 hours, sure. But there's times where sleep's not possible. It could be the weekends when we're competing, the Friday night. I'm gonna work late. And championship weekends, 3 matches in a row at the national championships. But sleep isn't gonna be the difference. At the end of the day, it's gonna be, what the athletes are able to do out there between the lines. For me, it was really important. I shared that we have 2 children. My husband's also a coach at the University of Alberta. He coaches with the Golden Bears football team. It was really essential that family integrated into the team. That was important for me in order for me to continue being a coach and being the mother that I wanted to be. It wasn't really an option to be lousy at either one of those things in my life. I couldn't possibly continue coaching if I felt I couldn't do the job, and I couldn't be a mom by not being present. So I decided to integrate the children into the team. My kids came when they were very young. They came to practice. Again, I had a boss that was just so supportive and allowed me to figure it out. Each year was a little bit different. Actually, Clayton, our 20-year-old, was born at the national championship in 1997. Well, actually, it was. I was able to make it to the All-Canadian banquet. Was on the Wednesday night. I had a great meal. And I was already a little bit overdue. And on the way back, Dr. John Hogg, I don't know if any of you know, he was just honored a couple weeks ago at the Alumni Awards for Wall of Fame. He gave me a ride home, and he takes credit for putting me into labor because he took a really bumpy road. And that night I went into labor. We played the quarterfinal the next day, and I didn't make it to that match. So Clay was born in the morning of the quarterfinal. I stayed in the hospital that night. They let me out the next day. Clay was a big old kid. He was like 8'13". I was a bit of a wreck physically. I'll admit that. But we had a semifinal that night. And so, I feel a little weird telling this story because people tend to go, oh, that's so amazing. I don't know if it was amazing. I just knew that my team was playing, and I wasn't sick. There was nothing wrong with me. My baby was fine. My mom was there, so it's all good. I didn't know what to do with that baby anyway, really. So I showed up at the gym. I was coaching alongside a very accomplished coach that was helping me through that year, anticipating that I might not be able to be available. And he had coached the semifinal. We're up 2-0. It's a best of 5. And I said to him, man, I hope the opponent puts us under a little pressure here. We need some pressure before the match tomorrow, before the final. And he looks at me and goes, shut up. Well, really, I think the team needs to feel a little angst before tomorrow to know what that feels like. And sure enough, it goes 5. And we ended up winning 15-13 or something in the 5th set. I think I was green by that time. But then we got the final the next day. So Lauren Suula, who was coaching with me, turned and said, you're head coaching the final. I'm like, no, it's fine. You be the head coach. It's not about who's at the end of the bench. It's about what does the team need. He goes, no, you be the head coach. So I had coached the final. I learned that my voice comes from a very low position of the body. It was a very physically challenging couple hours of my life. But guess what? We won. And I'm not the hero, though. The team would have won whether I was there or not. The heroes were the athletes, and in particular, an athlete that had torn her ACL, which is a really important part of the knee, about 2 weeks prior to the championship. And she came back under the guidance of Dr. Reed, who first of all said, yeah, you can play. Peter Friesen, who was our head therapist at the time, helped her get ready for that final, or for that event. And sure enough, she played without an ACL. I just had a baby. She doesn't even have an ACL. So I think you do what you have to do. When you're a leader, whatever it takes, that's what you got to do. But it also began this integration of my family into the team, and let it be okay for me to be a mom and a coach. Even if I had to sit on a donut, you can have it all, right? I want to talk to you about what we've really created over the 20-odd years that I've been at U of A. It didn't start immediately. I came into a program that was really quite problematic. It was a dysfunctional program. There was issues. There was leadership issues, I'll just put it that way. So it was a great opportunity for me to come in with a pretty clean slate and start something fresh. There was a real honeymoon period. The athletes are really anxious for change. And they got change, because I was almost the opposite of what they had previously. And since that time, I think we've matured a lot as a program. It was all about winning for quite a while, and then I kind of grew up a little bit, and I think our department has really evolved to the point where it's about so much more than just the color of the medal at the end of the season. It's about the impact we have on people's lives and the impact on our community. And so I want to share a little bit about what our culture is and what maybe differentiates us from others. And I can't speak to all of these, but I really wanted to speak to the one about all we ask is all you have, and what it means to be all in. That's all we ask of our student athletes. They are student athletes first. Their priority is always, and all of us, our priorities are family first. School is second. Volleyball is third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And somewhere is just the other stuff. And other stuff generally kind of gets consumed into volleyball, right, into the team. And so we ask a lot of our athletes. I think that it is a unique opportunity for them to experience as close as possible being a high-performance athlete within an educational context. Like I said, we don't leave a stone unturned. I hate regretting things. And so we'll do everything possible to get to where we possibly can be at the end of the season. Being all in means we don't have any people dragging a foot off of the train, slowing us down. Okay? Everybody is completely in, regardless of their role. And where this is, you can imagine that when you have a group of people that absolutely give everything they have, and they're completely all in, regardless of their role, how powerful that is, and how awesome it is every day to be working with people like that. Monday to Thursday, it's awesome. But it's interesting how sometimes that can actually work against you in the competitive environment, because you can imagine how much they want to win and how much it means to them and how much they care. Found last year's team was probably, of all the teams I've coached at U of A, was the hardest working, had done everything possible to position themselves to be champions. They were absolutely all in across the board, and we lost the national final. And at the end of the day, I think a part of it was we cared so much that it became almost too much for them in that moment. Now, if that group had come back and we'd had another chance, maybe this year would have been different. Bad news is 5 of them graduated, another 4 left, and we start over again. So athletes often get that one opportunity, they get that one chance. That particular group got 3 chances in their 5 years and came away with a silver medal each time. But I have no regrets about who they became as people and what they gave. There was nothing more they could have done, except in that moment, we could have passed the ball a little bit better. We could have served better. And I had one of my athletes tell me after the fact that she just wanted it so bad for me. I'm like, no, don't want it for me. You got to do it for yourself. You got to do it for your team. Right? But often you don't know until you're in that moment if they can really handle the moment. There's a lot of stuff there. So we create this culture. We need to ensure that we get the right people in the right seats. And so this is a quote from Jim Collins, author of Good to Great. Leaders of companies that go from good to great start by getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. And so who are the right people? We need to determine our demographic of who we're trying to recruit to our team and who we want to retain on our team. We need to ask ourselves a few questions. Can we develop athletes, or do we need them to be complete already? Do they have the academic capacity to meet the demands of University of Alberta? This place is not for the faint of heart. Academically, it's rigorous, and we need to ensure that our student athletes can handle it all. And they need to fit our culture, because culture doesn't graduate. Okay, the culture will continue. And then as far as keeping our people, we need to believe in them. We need to believe that there's a process, have patience in the process of development, and that we stick with them. I can't trade my players. Sometimes there's been, honestly, in March, after a disappointing finish at a championship, I wondered if I could put some people on waivers. I mean, these are sort of the black thoughts that you have in those dark moments of, I have to go with those guys again next year. That's what we do. Like, it's having the commitment to the process of getting better every day and sticking with them and being loyal and understanding that if they haven't learned yet, then I haven't taught them. That's a John Wooden quote, so I steal from everyone. We just got to keep working at it and figuring it out. Honesty is critical in coaching and in life. And sometimes the sort of brutal honesty helps people make their own decisions of whether really they want to continue, whether it's where they want to be in the recruitment process. We need to be honest with them so they don't sign up for something that they didn't think was going to be the way it was. There's nothing worse than having athletes that are unhappy or misled. And so I've learned to be much more honest and outright with my athletes. They may not like to hear those words at the moment, but in the end, it serves us all a much better result. Support staff. Coaching, when I came to U of A, it was only me. We don't have full-time assistant coaches at the University of Alberta in my sport. And so virtually all of our staff are volunteers, and some of our staff are master students in coaching, which has been a great addition to our program. Support staff needs to know their role, they need to have a role, but I really want to talk more around the challenges of having a strong staff. I have worked with 2 coaches on my staff that have head coached national teams, and were clearly more qualified than I am to do my job. And so why would I even talk about that? I think a lot of people, and I felt very fortunate, don't get me wrong. I mean, how lucky can you be then to have someone with that kind of expertise in your gym? But to keep people like that, to keep strong people, to keep very competent people, you need to share control. So I already said you don't have control as a coach. And now you got to share it with people that are not getting fired. The only person that's getting fired is you. But now you're going to say, yeah, go ahead. Have this control. They won't continue coaching without control. They won't continue in that context if they don't have control. They're really good people. They need to feel like they have, room to move and room to make decisions. And so sharing of control has been a challenging thing for me over the years, but I think I've gotten to a better place with that. And then the constant evaluation. In coaching, we're always being evaluated, usually on Fridays and Saturdays. But now I'm getting evaluated every single moment by experts in my own gym, right? So that constant surveillance can really be really challenging, especially if there's any inner doubts, which there always are. And for myself, it's always been around confidence and just feeling like, do I really know what I'm talking about? Am I good enough to do this job? And what if they find out? And who would find out? Oh, those experts in the gym might find out. So it's been an awesome thing for our program to have some really, really good people in the gym helping me coach the athletes. And it's also had some challenges for me personally as a coach. Then we need to have a dream, right? I really like this quote by Irma Bombeck. I brought this out a few years ago with a group of athletes in the early 2000s, the poor early 2000s Pandas. They came after the group that won 6 championships in a row. And they didn't win, that next group. But they really dreamt, they had a really strong dream to win, and they did everything possible to position themselves to win. And so winning and having these dreams and really being frank about it and saying, we're not gonna just quietly say that we wanna win, we're gonna shout it out to each other. We're gonna win. Because winners expect to win. I have never seen anyone surprised when they won. Like they had a plan. That's what they were working for. Right? The expectation to win. But then you have to have the courage to have the dream and to be really open about it and put it all on the line. So we got 700 wins last year, and how fun was that? To be honest, it was a little bit disconcerting having all this attention around. I didn't win anything. I didn't serve a ball. I didn't spike a ball. I was just there observing all of this stuff happening. And yet there was so much attention inappropriately put on me, I think. But it gave us a really good photo op for the 700th win. I have a nice framed picture of 700 wins in my office. I had a lot of people that wanted to talk to me about the 700 wins. My phone blows up when we win. I think it does. It's been a while. Well, we won Canada West last year, and my phone blew up. I remember that. Winning's really fun. Winning is way better than losing. So I'm going to show you a video. I'm showing a video. I'm supposed to announce that if you watch it on the live stream, you can't hear the audio, which is really sad because I think it's nice music. I don't know how to, where's my, Yeah, but I can't find my, oh, there it is. Okay. I'm the mouse. That's what I look like on the sideline. It's kind of what it feels like. So the first roughly 10 years of my coaching career, I had a lot of winning. And man, that was fun. Like, those are the best off seasons. Hey, I see some hockey players here. They can relate. Yeah, like every day is a party for quite a while. Then there's the 6 national final losses. Actually, the first loss was in the second year at U of A. We made it to the national final, and we lost. And I wondered at the time if I'd ever personally get another chance to be in a national final. And I did get more chances, but there was 5 more losses along the way, including last season. There's been 5 national semifinal losses. Several of those where we were the #1 ranked team in the country going into the championship. 2 national quarterfinal losses, a couple of those, like one of them at least was 16-14 in the 5th. And as devastating was the 2 Canada West Final 4 finishes where we placed 4th, which meant that we didn't even get a chance to move on to nationals. Yeah, so what does that feel like? How does it make us feel? I don't know how it makes other teams feel. I just know what our experience is. And so if I was putting words to it and not a cute little video with nice music, it would be words like devastation, heartbreaking. I feel guilty. I feel confused, distraught, stupid, panicked. I question and second guess every decision and action I took. It feels like a belly punch, heartache. It just hurts. It feels like you went 10 rounds with a heavyweight fighter and you lost. I want to stop. I want to quit. I never want to be in that place again. And I don't want to go in that dressing room after. I don't want to see the crying. I don't want to deal with that. I'm so done with that. But guess what? It's what I signed up for. Right? It's what our athletes signed up for. There's no guarantees in life that no matter what you do and how hard you work and doing all the right things, you still might come up short. So coping with the losses has been something that I think has kind of defined the last at least half of my coaching career, is figuring this piece out. Because if I didn't figure this out, I wouldn't be coaching anymore. I would have had to find probably some coping ways that would have caused me to find a different career or ended up in rehab, or this one needed to be figured out because it's so gut-wrenching. So what I've learned is that, first of all, it's okay to feel the pain. You need to feel the pain. And it's going to leave a mark. Okay, but that mark is actually going to be a really beautiful thing. You need to learn from the experience. I think the worst thing that we can do as people in the competitive arena is just to wipe it under the rug and say, well, it just wasn't our day. Probably is not going to be your day next time either, right? So to learn from it, to find some perspective. At the end of the day, it is a game, right? Like it's just kind of like keeping that ball off the floor, like really find some perspective. And as a result, you'll have an even stronger foundation. So when you're moving forward, you have a deeper commitment to the how and why of what you do in every part of what you do. And then you start all over again. So for me, it's nice for me, I'm the coach. If we lost the national final, I'm probably not getting fired. Is he in here? You know, I'm going to get another chance. The athletes may or may not, right? Because they do actually graduate and they do move on. But we get to start again. And I just kind of love this little quote. It's from Ard Dalio. I think he's a business guy. Some of you might know who this person is. But that pain and reflection leads to progress. And I think the pain is part of that. It's like a necessary evil of progress. And so I've created some kind of analogies that help me. I don't know why I became obsessed with Mount Everest. I'm from Saskatchewan. I'm a flatlander. I don't like heights. I love looking at the Rocky Mountains. I don't like being up there and looking down. Okay, but I became really obsessed with Mount Everest in the around 2010, 11. We were hosting nationals, and so it meant that this particular pretty young team was only 3 matches away from the national championship at the start of the season. Right? We didn't have to qualify. We're the host. We get to. It's the same as what we're going to have next season. We host the championship next season. So we decided that we're going to dream. We're going to dream that we're going to win, and we are going to shoot for that national championship. And who am I as a coach to say no? You're not good enough, athletes. Come on, put that dream away. We're not good enough this year. How do you know? And so why wouldn't we have the dream? Just like I would imagine people that are in the business of helping people climb Mount Everest, it would be pretty difficult to tell someone that you're not good enough to climb it. I would think that there's a very diverse group of people that have tried to climb Mount Everest. And I guess if they bring you a check for a certain amount of money, you probably would let them try to get to the top. And so I see the role of the coach in competition as being fairly similar to those guides and Sherpas that help the climbers of Mount Everest. They need to try to facilitate this. They need to help them along the way. But in the end, failure can be caused by things like poor planning, bad luck, just bad weather. We broke a thumb. Our star player broke a thumb in a national semifinal. How do you plan for that? And in the end, your talent might not be quite strong enough in the end, but you won't know until they get tested on that mountain, right? At the end of the day, what is the guide's role in climbing Mount Everest? Is it to get their people to the top, or is it to get them to the bottom? Did they pay you to die up there? I don't think so. Well, I don't know enough about it. It's possible. But I know my athletes deserve to come down from it alive and to be better people and to have learned from it and to be able to move on and to be stronger, more capable, more ready for the next challenge. So I'm going to tell you a quick little story about last Saturday. We had practice on Saturday afternoon in the comp gym. And we got really stuck in this rotation. This is volleyball terminology, but one of our own players is serving that team, and she's just serving rockets, and we just couldn't get out of this rotation. And I'm kind of having angst about what do I do? How do I help them? I want them to be successful, but there's no guarantees, and it's almost time for practice to end. And we didn't really have success in that particular drill. I talked to one of the veteran players about it after. I said, but what are the chances really of a player being able to put together a series of serves like that could really determine the outcome? And she looked at me and she goes, you mean like Maggie Lee? Maggie Lee was a player for University of UBC last season that in the national final in the fourth set when we had the lead, went off on us on a serving run. And guess who she was serving at? That player. That still that will never forget that moment. And is so committed now to finding the solutions. It's like, no, we got to figure that one out because that could happen. Like, yeah, you're right, it could happen. And we'll work on this together and we'll find the solutions. So we're going to be better, for having gone through the failures. And we're going to be grateful for the opportunity to fail in that big moment. Because it is actually a real privilege to even be in the arena, to be in that moment, to either experience the joy of victory or the agony of defeat. And so when I can bring myself to that point, then I kind of know that I've gotten through it myself personally. If I can get the athletes to wrap their brains around gratitude for the opportunity to have their heart broken. Gratitude for the learning that emerges. And that the loser gets to learn more. So maybe we did win. The only alternative to me is to not dream, to not care, to not invest. Not an option. Right? So if that day comes when I'm not dreaming, I'm not caring, I'm not investing, I need to go away. They got to put me out to pasture. I'm done. I can't coach anymore. And I would suggest the athletes can't be a part of our culture. They're not part of our culture if they're not dreaming, caring, and investing. So I think there was one other little descriptor of this talk, and it was something about how do I stay calm when tensions are high, leading a team of university athletes into competition? A, I'm not calm. That's just an act. Relatively calm, maybe. You can be calm when you're ready, when you're prepared, when you know that you've done all of the things that you have control over that at least give you a chance. And then you let it all hang out and go out there and see what happens. And at the end of the day, it's these things that we're going to carry forward. And what I found that so many athletes talk about, it really isn't the wins and losses that they remember. Now that I have alumni that are pushing strollers and some incredible women in our community and other communities, they don't talk about the wins and losses. They talk about the relationships they develop, the parties they had, things that happened in the team room that I never knew about, the road trips, the experiences they had. And I think as coaches, we probably hold on to that whole, the wins and losses maybe a little bit longer, but the experience is really about them at the end of the day. So I would like to thank you.
Thank you. That was such a remarkable presentation. And, as you were speaking, I'm thinking, it's really life we're talking about here. And all of the things that we set ourselves to do. But one of the things that really, really strikes me about your role as a coach is when you said it's one of those things where you really have very little control. That so much of what the outcome is going to be is things that you have no control over. And you even talked about institutional settings that are not working in your favor. Are there people who just are not cut out for coaching? Are there people who just for whom that kind of uncertainty does them in?
Yeah, I would think that would be one of the things that would drive people out of coaching is they just can't deal with not being responsible for the outcome or having control over the outcome at the end of it all. And I think it's actually something that drives some of our athletes out of, especially team sports. It's a challenge in team sports where, you might be playing great, but this one over here is not so good. Mm-hmm. And so I've actually had some athletes that were fabulous volleyball players that had found more success and I think more enjoyment in what they were doing by shifting to an individual sport and finding their real true place was in a domain where they had more control. So if you can't accept that lack of control, I don't think you can persist. You might have a short, flashy career for a couple of years, but I don't know if you can persist over the long term.
I wonder if that's sort of analogous also to say the difference between somebody who's an entrepreneur and is prepared to take risks and without that certainty, and others who are more comfortable working within established and more comprehensible organizations. It could be.
Yeah, and I think, you know, at the University of Alberta, we're really blessed with, as coaches, we have a lot of control over our teams. Part of that is kind of the funding model. So we're also responsible for fundraising, a large part of what we need to be able to run our programs. So there's a lot of wiggle room. Other institutions aren't like that. So I think this fit has been really good for me, where I feel like I have actually a lot of control in a lot of areas, but I have to accept that there's some that you just can't change it. You can't step out on the court and serve a ball for them.
Yeah. I'm just watching my watch because in a few minutes we'll turn to the audience also for questions. But I just want to ask a couple of other things. It's interesting that I do a lot of work and talking and thinking about the advancement of women. And one of the things that people said for many years about women in business is that men came into business having played team sports. And women didn't have that experience. But now we're seeing a tremendous change in the United States with Title IX, back in 1972, which opened up funding for women's sports. It really changed that. Do you think that, do you see the impact of this? What do your graduates tell you? What do you see in the effect of this kind of very high-level competitive sports for women athletes?
Well, I am seeing more of our student athletes are going into fields like business. I think we have 3 business students right now on our team, and that never happened before. We had lots going into teaching profession. But I find the ones that do graduate and move on in their careers, regardless of what they do, they tend to become leaders in what they're doing, and that seems to be a bit of a magnet for them. They really want to make a difference, and they want to make the people around them better. So I think working in teams, they understand the power of the group, and that is kind of messy, and that's okay, but we have to learn how to work together and to really get the most out of each other. So, you know, my hope is that these women, no matter what they end up doing, one of our most celebrated alumni is maybe the best stay-at-home mom in the world. She's just a phenomenal mom, and you know, loves that role in her life, and that's what she's great at. We have one over at UA Hospital that's an emergency room doctor that is fabulous at what she does, and so they're all over the place, and they're very diverse in what they're doing, and I think the sky's the limit for them because they really know themselves, and they know their own capacity, and they know how to work with each other.
That's a very interesting observation, because one of the things, you know, in our college, the students work together in very diverse groups, and the things that they learn are also designed to help discover themselves. And one of the things we do is we look at a lot of the research in behavioral sciences and psychology about the way we think. And I'm interested, when you said that you did your master's in psychology, what were some of the most interesting insights that have helped you in your coaching, working with athletes?
Well, I did some research in group cohesion, and so how a group works together, and it was really interesting to me to learn that with great teams, it wasn't necessarily how they got along outside of the task at hand, the social cohesion. It was, are they united around the task of performing as a team? And that is just so critical, is what happens between the lines. And some of the best teams we've had on the court haven't necessarily been the closest teams off the court, and that's okay. You don't have to be, you know, best friends with people that you're competing with, but when you're between the lines, you've got to be able to look them in the eye and to be honest with them and to get to really what the issues are that are stopping us from performing. And that's challenging for people because we tend to not really want to say what needs to be said. We like to say things that people want to hear. It's risky saying that difficult thing, but until it's said, it's going to be an obstacle, and it's going to be that bump in the road that's going to trip you up in the end. And sometimes athletes in teams that we've had, they just couldn't get over that. They just couldn't take that risk of being really truly honest with one another and learning how to remove some of those obstacles to performance.
That's actually a very, very powerful message. and one I hope our students are bearing in mind as they're thinking of the work they do in their forums. You also talked about the importance in your culture and the way you approach things, that you have family, school, and then sports. And that sounds great. And Chris Morris has talked about this too. How do you actually make that happen? How do you ensure that that set of priorities is adhered to?
Well, family, they have to take care of that. So, and we have to, at the end of the day, they're adults, and they've got to make decisions of where they're going to be at a certain time of the day. So if they need to be somewhere, I need to make that possible for them. Around family, around school, we schedule our training at the end of the day. I know that it would be really nice for me if we could train at like 2 in the afternoon and I could go home, especially when my kids were young, to go home and actually have a meal and put the kids to bed and spend some time. But it's just not possible, because how do the students go to school? And it's not, I don't want them to miss practice. That would be disadvantaging them as athletes. So we really try to accommodate the academic schedule as much as we can, and then work with the students to find solutions with their professors, to find accommodations where necessary. There's midterms, there's missed classes, there's all of those things that happen. They have to follow the same, standards as every other student at the U of A. And we accommodate where we can, but at the end of the day, we can't change the schedules that we're given, and there's very little flexibility that way. But I cannot build a successful program with students that aren't successful. The one-year wonder doesn't get you anywhere. So it's in my best interest, absolutely, as a coach, that the students are successful, and we try to do whatever we can to help them.
I also thought your comments about mentorship were really interesting. Learning how to, we actually do some training with our students and with our mentors about, how to be a mentor and how to get the best out of a mentor relationship. But this notion of knowing what to take and what to reject. Did you ever, you talked about, not accepting the advice, but you couldn't be a mom and a coach at the same time. Do you have any examples of advice that you took, or occasions when maybe you were too influenced by a mentor? You ever think of that, or were you always?
Yeah, there was a mentor that I worked with that it took me a little bit too long maybe to realize how different we actually are. Mm-hmm. And out of respect, it was hard for me to find my voice and to say, no, it's this way. And to really assume my control and my position of needing to make those tough decisions. So it's easy, I think, sometimes with mentors just to kind of get swept along in their tide and to follow along. And it wasn't until I almost had an emotional breakdown that I realized this isn't working. Like, I need to find a way for it to be my way. And at the end of the day, I am the head coach, and I need to take responsibility for this, and for it to feel authentic and true to me.
I also thought you talk about that coaching is lonely, and that your athletes can't be your friends. That's a really interesting dynamic. Mm-hmm. How do you sort of set the right distance between the athletes and yourself? Because obviously they care about you. When a team member says they want to win for you, that's obviously a reflection of enormous respect and affection. How do you gauge that? How do you make it work?
Well, to be honest, like, I'm so old now, they don't really want to be my friend.
Time heals all wounds.
But I think I was 27. I was only a couple years older than my athletes when I was hired here. And I didn't know anyone in Edmonton. So it was really tough to draw the line in the sand. But I call it a professional distance. Mm-hmm. So I need them to know that I'm there for them and actually with the smartphone, any minute of the day, I'm there for them. They can reach me. I will do anything in my power to help them and to support them. But I'm not going to go to them for my needs. That's not fair to them. Mm-hmm. And it just really complicates the coach-athlete relationship. So it was harder for me earlier in my career, but more necessary then. Now, my daughter's actually on the team. And so they're looking at me like, oh, that's Janae's mom. Not someone that they necessarily want to be friends with. But some of my dearest friends actually are alumni. Mm-hmm. And we knew at the time that we were going to be friends, but we couldn't be friends at the time. And that's one of the sort of this bittersweet moments when they graduate, is I'm losing an athlete, but I'm gaining a friend. And developing those relationships after the fact has been really special.
That's very interesting. We're going to go to the floor for questions from the audience. We have a throw mic here, and I think Kelly or somebody's going to come and heave it out. When you get the mic, hold it in front of you and speak normally. And in the interest of time, audience members, we ask you to ask only one question and refrain from follow-up questions, and we'll do our best. I'm reading my instructions here. We'll do our best to rotate from students and the wider community. But before we do that, I just want to ask one more question, and that is, how do you think, what was the impact on your kids, do you think, of growing up in the teams? Have they talked about how it affected their lives, how they see things? Are they totally destroyed in therapy?
That was certainly something I was very aware of, was whether I could continue coaching was going to depend on how the children did. So the first was, what kind of report cards would they get? What was the feedback from teachers? What was the feedback from other important adults in their life? And how are these kids turning out? Because what I see may not be really accurate. And they both ended up shockingly being athletes. One went his own way, and Clay's a hockey player, and Janae chose volleyball. I think for Janae in particular, she really grew up in the gym, and she it's hard for me to talk about her.
But that's probably one of the best signs, that she's willing to play the game and doesn't sort of see it as the last thing on earth she wants to be part of.
Yeah, no, I mean, she had the longest training period of any Panda ever, right? She was actually at the 99 championship in a little bucket behind the bench. Janae was a preemie. And so she's a miracle baby, one of those $1 million babies, I think they call them. That came really early, and she was 2 pounds 6 ounces. So I had the 8-pounder, and then I had the 2-pounder, and it's a very, very different experiences as a mom. And actually, it was you go through things in life that help give you perspective. And she was a fighter right from day one. And I didn't, what is a fighter? When they're 2 pounds, how do you know? But the nurse said to me right away, she goes, "Laura, your baby's gonna be fine. She's a fighter." Well, how do you know that? And she says, well, they do the normal procedures for preemies, and she was intubated, so the oxygen thing down, and she pulled it out. I'm like, well, put it back in. And the nurse said she doesn't need it. Like, she knew she didn't need it. She just didn't want it in there. And I'm looking at this, like, little person who, was just so tiny and looked so vulnerable with all these wires, but she was just a fighter. And so I wasn't sure, how things would work out with her, because there's so many things that can go wrong. But she's fought through a lot of things, and she's as tough as nails, and it's given me a lot of perspective in that there's a lot bigger things in life than keeping the volleyball off the floor.
Okay, question. And I'm blind as a bat, so you really have to wave your hand if you want the microphone. There. These throw microphones are the greatest things. Now you see if you can sort of serve it like a volleyball.
Not a panda.
Yeah.
When you're learning from failure, do you ever struggle with not picking yourself apart entirely? Like when you're trying to find out where you went wrong, is it easy to determine exactly?
Yeah, I think I'm getting better at it. I would say my husband would be a good person to ask how it went in '93. So the first national final that we lost was a really rough off season. That stuck with me. That affected my life for a long time. But I'm getting better at it. Getting better at processing it and sort of identifying what the contributing factors were and recognizing patterns and, oh yeah, it was that again. and I'm learning self-compassion, that I'm not perfect and I'm gonna make mistakes too. And you can't be all-knowing. Like, you can't always predict what's gonna happen, and just sort of, I guess, maturing and understanding that it's hard. Winning's super hard.
But you're saying that, things that are beyond your control, but, was it to say success has many parents, but failure is an orphan? I mean, it sounds like you feel overly responsible for the failures.
Yeah, I think that is definitely in my DNA, is taking ownership for all of that, because it is my job. Yeah. And to have that group fully prepared for that moment.
I got another hand here for a question over here. I think somebody with the yellow shirt. Can we? Can I use this? Oh, yeah, sure. If that works, sure.
Coach Eisler, you're probably the worst person to ask about moderation, because you've painted a great picture of the ferocious competition and such. But do you find these 18-year-olds get overwrought, sometimes emotionally overwrought, or do you teach them a way to unwind and to relax, get good sleep or anything as well? There's the other side from the court. What do you do for that?
Yeah, I mean, when we can, when it seems to be the thing that we need, we will break routine. And one of the nice trips we have in the year is heading out to Vancouver in January. And sometimes we might say, we'll pass on that 9 a.m. practice in War Memorial Gym, and we'll head to the beach and walk around Stanley Park and just get a break from the rigor of the routine and the structure. We try to educate them as much as we can around, they don't get enough sleep, I know that. And sleep's overrated for me, but they need it desperately to be able to perform. And so napping is mandatory. The pregame nap is essential, and really encouraging them to take care. We'd call it the temple, take care of the temple. And I really encourage moderation in how they enjoy their lives as students. I think sometimes they can get pretty extreme in how they enjoy their lives as young adults. And in season is moderation time, and we just can't afford it, because it's going to affect that next competition, even that practice. If it affects the practice, it affects us, because now we've just thrown away a day of preparation. So moderation is really important in our context, but we also know when it's time to party.
I'm looking at hands. Is there someone over here? Go ahead. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for the talk. I just had a question. If every single human being alive could hear you share a sentence based on your experience, what would that be?
Oh, boy.
She'll just retire on that now.
Yeah.
It'll be good. Was that a comment or a question?
Yeah, I think it's a question. It's just, you put me on the spot there a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it would be to find your passion, because if you find your passion, you never work a day in your life. Like, I don't go to work. I tell my team that. I don't go to work. I haven't gone to work yet. I get paid. But it's my passion. So there are days where it feels a little bit like a grind. There's no question. It's not all like, butterflies and rainbows. But I love what I'm doing, and therefore it's that part of it's not hard if you're passionate about it. So I guess it's finding your passion.
And that's actually a very profound piece of advice, because so many people often get distracted to doing things that they think they ought to do, or that are going to make them happy. And one of the greatest gift in your life is to have a passion, to be able to find it and do it. And you're absolutely right. I'm looking for hands for questions here. No, they're good. Thank you.
Hi, Laurie, huge fan, obviously. You're amazing. I have a volleyball specific question for you. Sorry for all the muggles in here. But in terms of volleyball, there's essentially, I'm going to break down to two parts. So one where you have to compete to earn a point, and there's others when you're ahead by quite a lot of points. And so how do you keep your team motivated to essentially still reach that end goal despite not necessarily having to earn it as much as they would in, say, a national final?
So just to be clear, you're saying how do you push them when they already have a lead?
Yeah, so if they're ahead
yeah,
by
well,
a lot.
I get kind of nasty. I don't know who, I watch a lot of football. And I think I was meant to be a football player, coach. And so I hear things like football people say, and it's fine in football. Like, it's totally acceptable. It's such a brutally contact sport. It's vicious. And we don't always use that kind of language in volleyball because there's a net separating us. It's one of the reasons I love volleyball too, is it prevents me from being that person I could be if I was in a contact sport. But we talk about putting our foot on their throat. Like, you get someone down, you finish it. And you make them miserable, like you end it, and you don't give them any chance to have any good feelings at all. I never said I was nice.
Scares the wits out of me. I think I'm just trying to make sure that my watch is no. I'll give one more question before we before the students will go off and press you with some more questions. Here we go.
Well, I'm focused in on your slide about getting the right people on the bus. And I think one of the challenges that I found in leadership is how do you balance the team skills versus the technical, practical skills that you need? And, you know, what are some of the, I guess, lessons that you might share about that part of it?
That's a really good question. I actually had a couple of slides that I deleted a lot of slides, just but one was around the type of cultures, and I think when I first started, I really strove towards a competitive culture that really the only thing that matters was winning. And the relationships thing piece wasn't so important, and character. I also think that I thought that I could change people. And I think we can. I think we can influence change, but it's a slow, hard process. So you got to be careful where your starting point is. And what I think we've evolved to is looking harder at the character piece, and in trying to find that mix of character and talent. And so I'm going to err a little bit more now towards the character piece, because what we do is so hard already, and if we're got that one or two people, it just can really take a team out, and it can exhaust people, and it can really distract from what our mission really is about. So I've become a little bit more selective about the type of person. Part of it too is honoring the athletes on the team, is what kind of teammates do they deserve to have, and going out and really trying to find the best of the best in the whole package, as opposed to just, well, that's a great server, so I want them. and yeah, just looking a little bit more at the whole person.
Well, unfortunately, we have to draw our conversation to a close. As you know, our students will go off to have their own session with Coach Eisler. But first of all, I'm going to invite Dr. Krugman to come up to end our session, but maybe we'll have the first of several rousing rounds of applause for our guest speaker, Coach Eisler.